Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, open spoiler after show, talking about all the things that happened in Mandalorian Episode 3 of this Season 3 last night. It was a good episode. It was a good, I think the best episode of the season so far. I mean, I thought the second half of episode 2 was really good, but I thought the first half of episode 2 was a little wonky. I thought this was the best episode and actually the most ambitious. I'll say that. I think the most ambitious episode. Do I think is one of the better episodes of Mandalorian overall? No, but I think it's the best one of the season so far, and we'll go into all the details here in just a bit. Welcome to everybody here as we gather around to talk about Mandalorian. Now, again, in case the title of this and what I just said doesn't make it abundantly crystal clear, we are going to be talking about Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3 in open spoilery details. So if you've not seen the episode yet, then you may just want to add this video to your wish list or your favorites list and then come back and watch it again a little bit later. And hello to everybody in the live chat who's joining me already. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about my general thoughts and feelings about the episode first, and then we'll spend the majority of our time taking your guys' live comments, questions, observations, theories, whatever it is you have about the episode of Mandalorian last night. And that's what we'll do for the remainder of our time. All right, let's get into it, shall we? This episode was really broken down into 3 separate pieces. And I'm not talking about the 3-act structure of beginning, middle, and end. I mean, there was really like 3 main sections of this episode of Mandalorian. We have the beginning of them, of just Bo-Katan and Mando going back to her house gets bombed, all that kind of stuff. Then we move on to the scientist, and then that scientist story takes up the main bulk of the episode. And then we go back to Din and Bo-Katan going to the conclave and, having "you are redeemed," yay, all that whole thing, right? So there's really 3 different pieces. So let's address each of those 3 different pieces. All right. The first piece of the episode, Din and Bo-Katan going back to her place, right? Your place or mine. They decided to go back to her place. Now, in the midst of that, breaks out this awesome TIE fighter fight. I thought it was great. I mean, probably the best space. It wasn't even in space. It was in the atmosphere, but you know what I mean. Probably the best ship-to-ship combat scene that Mandalorian as a series has had so far. And it wasn't even tremendously long. And how unbelievably cool was that shot, that maneuver that Bo-Katan pulled, where she lifts one of her wings up and does this split. It was almost like a Maverick move, right? And does this spin around, blast thing. It looked awesome. The whole jumping out of the ship thing, like Mando just like straight up skydiving, halo jumping, if you will, out of the ship to go down and land by his so he can get in the fight as well. That was pretty damn cool. Actually, when Baby Yoda hit the button and put the cover back over his dome, I thought he was going to drop out of the ship with Din. So I'm glad they did not do that. That was really, really great to see. So that was fabulous. Now, I do not like wild action scenes without a purpose. Like I've always said this, action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. So like if they had done that scene where all of a sudden TIE fighters jump out of nowhere, it would feel like a Dungeons and Dragons random encounter. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden there are TIE fighters there. Ah! There had to be narrative purpose, and they gave us a great narrative purpose because for the story, they needed some sort of mechanism that made Bo-Katan need to go with Mando back to the conclave, right? Because she was just going to go home, drop him off at his ship, and she was just going to be at home, right? They needed a story device to move her from her place to go with him to that world. A surprise attack by a bunch of TIE fighters destroying her home, that's a pretty good narrative reason. And I think we just got our first glimpse of the fact that Moff Gideon is back. right? Because that's Moff Gideon attacking her. And of course, later we found out that he has indeed escaped. And then we see, Kane is out there. So I think it's pretty clear that was Moff Gideon. I've seen some theories of people saying, actually, I'm seeing in the live chat right now, I'm seeing one or two people saying they think it's Grand Admiral Thrawn. And there's no purpose for Grand Admiral Thrawn to be just attacking one single, like Bo-Katan's house. There's no purpose for that. Grand Admiral Thrawn or Moff Gideon, on the other hand, has a very personal reason for attacking and trying to take out Bo-Katan. So anyway, I think it's pretty clear it was Gideon, but don't know. We'll find out. And of course, there's a power structure there too. That they are probably working together, Gideon and Thrawn and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so there was a really good narrative. So it was a good action scene with good narrative purpose attached to it. Mwah! Perfect. That's what a good action scene should have. And that's what this one did. And it was pretty great. I really like that one a lot. All right. So then once that's all done, we move to Coruscant. And, you heard Chris and me talking about this earlier today. When they go to Coruscant, I don't think any Star Wars movie or show ever has made Coruscant look so beautiful. Like, it really did feel like a real metropolis. Like, even in the prequels, when you see Coruscant, okay, you see a lot of buildings and ships, but it doesn't feel like a city that's alive. You know what I mean? This made it feel like a real metropolitan planet. Like, the planet was alive. You felt the culture of it. You felt the people in it. You felt all that kind of stuff. And it looked beautiful because if you're especially somebody from the Outer Rim, whatever, and you come to one of these core worlds, like what do they say? It's one of only 6 city planets. And you see it. I mean, you should be hit with this sense of awe and wonder. And they did that. And I think they did that really, really well. So that was beautiful. And of course, we come right across our scientist giving his TED talk on, hey, it's wonderful having been, what's the word they give it when they're transitioning you over? They're not redeeming them, but it's another word. What's the word they use for it? Rehabilitation. No, it wasn't a rehabilitation program. Anyway, amnesty. I think it was amnesty. This amnesty program that they introduced that the New Republic has set up a way that people who were part of the Empire, if, they were part of the Empire, not because they were evil goons, but because, hey, listen, you had 2 choices, be a part of the Empire, die, or starve, or whatever, right? For those people, the New Republic has set up an amnesty program where you can transition from your life as being a part of the Empire to being a functional, contributing member of the New Republic society. And he talks about that and all that kind of really showing the difference between the Empire and the New Republic, right? And he's given his sort of TED talk and then talking to a bunch of people afterwards. I mean, this shot right here, like even when he's talking to the calamari and all that kind of stuff, I just thought it was pretty funny seeing these social gatherings, people standing around these social circles, chatting and divesting and all that kind of stuff. And we really get a sense of where he is. The scientist is fully bought in to the idea of the New Republic, and he wants to help the New Republic. And then it's like, what happens in every good man's life, gentlemen? A bad woman comes along to lead you off the straight and narrow, to put you on the difficult, arduous, wrong path. That's not really how life works. But I mean, in the case of the scientist and Kane showing back up, it is that. And you would think that Kane or the scientist should have figured out, like, you weren't just some person. You seem to enjoy your job working for Gideon. You seem to like what you were doing there. Anyway, you figured the scientist would have known a little bit better. Anyway, so of course she shows up, and I think all of the viewers knew. We all knew she was doing something to set him up. She was after him, whatever. And they go through this big, long rigmarole of going to get this thing. But here's where the strength of this part of the show, because, the first part, Din and Bo-Katan, second part, the scientist. And the strength of this whole thing was the moral dilemma, right? This is something that Andor did really well. Again, I do think that Andor is the better show, but it's a very, very different kind of show, right? This middle part of this episode felt very Andor. Not as good, but felt very Andor, where the whole basic thing was a parable. It was a parable being played out of this doctor who really does mean well, and he's struggling with this moral struggle. Like, he wants to help the New Republic. He wants his work to be for good. I also think there is a little bit of a selfish element too. I think there's a part of him that he just wants to do his research, right? But I do believe that deep down, he's also, I want to be a contributing member to the New Republic Society. I want to help the New Republic. I think my research is going to help a lot of people and all that kind of stuff. But I've been given amnesty by the New Republic. I've been given a second chance by the New Republic, and all they're asking of me in return is to follow the rules. And so he's faced with this dilemma, and of course he has, the little angel on his shoulder that looks like himself saying, follow the rules. You've been given amnesty. They're giving you a second chance at a productive life outside of the Empire. Follow the rules. And then this little devil on the shoulder that looks like Cain saying, nah, let's go get your gear, Doc. Let's go get your gear. And so they move on to do this. By the way, I loved these scenes. This, to me, first of all, it felt very real because it feels like this is the sort of thing we had going on. But these scenes with the therapist droid, are you experiencing any resentment towards your coworkers? Are you experiencing any resentment towards the New Republic? That felt very real. But also, again, I feel like in this episode, they were doing things to create a distinction between how the Empire would treat you versus how the New Republic treats you. They are trying to look after you, right? And they're trying to help you assimilate into the new culture and society and stuff like that. So I actually really got a big kick out of these scenes. I thought these scenes were really, really well done. So I like those a lot. And I also like it when he goes, hey, I was wondering, I'm a researcher. If I wanted to, on my casual time, pursue research, do you think I can do that? And, she shuts him down. Oh, according to the database, you research naughty things. So no research for you. My apologies. But you'd think that would have been a little bit of a red flag, but whatever. They let him go. And it's all good. I like those scenes a lot. So, then my one big head scratcher about the episode, though, is that the scientist and Cain go to the docks and they go to a decommissioned Star Destroyer. I'm sorry. Really? That is an Empire machine of war. And there's no security. Now, I know Cain says there's nothing to take. They're just walking through that thing and there's tons of stuff to take. You go into a fully equipped lab still. Like, really, they would just park that there on the street corner and just worried nobody's going to break in here. That part felt really, really dumb. That part felt dumb. And when they get on the train to get there, that felt a little too easy. Really, just stick your foot in. There's no system there to say, hey, somebody just jammed, but whatever. These are little nitpicks, but still, sometimes it's the little nitpicks that get to me. And then just, walk into a decommissioned giant galactic machine of war that nobody guards because there's nothing to take. I don't know, whatever. That seemed a little bit weird to me. And then, of course, the trap is sprung and he gets put in the mind flayer and all that kind. By the way, that's another thing that jumped out at me. There is no way in the New Republic, there's no regulations. Like when they put the guy in the mind flayer, right, and set it to a nice, pleasant level, there's no way they can say, hey, can I just stay here? Sure, you look like a trustworthy person. You're good. And just leave when all somebody has to do is just grab that dial and go, I'll crank it to 11 and turn it up to 11 and fry the guy's brain. Like, really? There's not like some kind of, I don't know, protocol or procedure. You're just allowed to let somebody hang out in the room like that. That was, and that's not a little nitpick. That's like a big glaring thing. Like that was really dumb. That was really, really dumb. The guy says, oh yeah, sure. You can just hang out here. What? There's no liability here. Anyway, that was just that one thing. So anyway, what was the point of that whole scientist thing? I'm not really sure yet. But I think it's clear to me that it will become clear, right? Like, if they just wanted the Doctor not to talk, well, he's already been through the entire New Republic pre-stage before he even came to Amnesty Housing. So he would have talked then. He's not really at risk of talking now. So why was it they felt the need they had to burn the Doctor's brain? I'm not sure. But again, I feel pretty certain that that will become clear. I think that will become clear. And it was also just another sign that, hey, Gideon's back. Moff Gideon's back. And she's clearly still working for him. Okay, so we had part one with Din and Bo, part two with the scientist and Kane, and now we move on to part three of the series where Din and Bo then go to the Conclave. What's this guy's name again? Paz. What's his last name? It's Paz. Somebody else. What's his last name again? It's Paz Bisla. Thank you. Michael Gonzalez, first one to throw it in there. Paz Bisla, who I really like in these shows, by the way. Like, I like the fact that he lives by the code, man. This dude lives by the code. And if that means I come and I got your back, because that's what the code tells me to do, I'm going to be there and I'll have your back. But hey, if it's totally within the code to say, I don't think you deserve that Darksaber, I want to beat your ass and take it from you, he'll do that too. I mean, I really like this character. I think this character is very, 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 very interesting to me. Anyway, so Bo-Katan and Din go back to the Conclave. They produce the living waters. They prove that, Mando's been redeemed, right? By Creed, he's been redeemed. And then the armor says, well, Bo-Katan Kryze, you've also been redeemed. If you haven't taken your helmet off since you bathed in the living waters, you're one of us. You can leave anytime you want. You can go anytime you want. You don't have to stay and live by our code if you don't want to. But since you bathed in the waters and you haven't taken off your helmet since, you're one of us right now. And you can take your helmet off and leave and do whatever you want to do if that's what you want to do. But until you do that, you're one of us. And I kind of like the fact that, like, then all the Mandalorians like kind of gather around her and like they like greet her to being one of them and all. And I'm sure they all know the House Kryze name. They all know who Bo-Katan is. I'm sure all Mandalorians know who Bo-Katan is. And they all welcome her in there and all that kind of stuff. And the same, they go over and, they welcome Din back. He's part of the family again. And you kind of wonder, I am of two minds now on this. When it comes to Bo-Katan with the cult, I'm of one of two minds. Either seeing the Mythosaur, which is a stupid name for a creature, by the way. If seeing the Mythosaur, or whatever it is, how you pronounce it, has made her rethink things. And she's like, maybe I want to be a part of this. Maybe the old ways, the ancient ways are the right ways. And maybe I should be a part of this. Or is Bo-Katan being a shrewd politician at the same time? Is Bo-Katan looking at this situation as this is an opportunity? Here's my army. This is my opportunity. So I don't know if she's being like emotional. It's like, maybe I should belong to something like this. Or if she's being a little bit strategic and conniving, seeing an opportunity to gather her army, to gather an army of Mandalorians together, go back and take back Mandalore. Get back to her original quest. So I don't know. I don't know, but it did leave me questioning that and wondering about that. Anyway, guys, I thought overall the best episode of the season so far. I mean, I was engaged. I did not think the whole scientist story was nearly as compelling as like stuff they did in Andor, but it's the first time in Mandalorian they tried to go that route, right? Where instead of just the fun, look at Din drawing his gun and shooting people and these cool one-liners, they actually try to do a story of a moral dilemma. And I appreciate that a lot. And then the stuff that we had with Mando and with Bo-Katan, I thought was really, really good, particularly the space fight, the stuff with the Conclave at the end. I thought that was really strong. And I remember when this episode ends, I felt better than at the end of any of the other episodes yet. So I thought this was a winner of an episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they go next week. All right. Guys, with that all down, we are now going to spend the rest of our time taking your comments and questions and thoughts and theories and opinions about this episode. Now, before we get to that, though, we're going to take a quick second here and thank the sponsor of this video here today, our friends over at MasterClass. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, MasterClass. MasterClass offers classes on a wide variety of topics, all taught by world-class instructors at the very top of their fields. Each class is broken out into individual video lessons, usually around 10 minutes long. And MasterClass is completely accessible on your phone, the web, smart TV, and available via audio mode to listen to classes on the go. They have over 2,500 video lessons from over 180 of today's most brilliant minds. They're all available anytime, anywhere on iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. Now, obviously around here on the John Campea Show, we love our movies, so why not learn filmmaking from Jodie Foster, or maybe directing from Ron Howard himself, or the great Neil Gaiman doing his class on the art of storytelling. And you guys have heard me talk about my favorite class, Business Strategy and Leadership by Big Papa Iger himself, Bob Iger, the new and returning CEO of Disney. So guys, I highly recommend that you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class, and as a John Campea Show listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Just go to masterclass.com/Campea now. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off Masterclass. All right, guys, and we are back, and thank you to our friends at MasterClass. Guys, seriously, almost all of us in the office actually do use MasterClass. It's absolutely fantastic. Go and check them out. I think you'll be glad that you did. All right. With that down, guys, let's get over and start taking your live comments and questions, shall we? We're going to start things off here with Ryan Launer, who writes, Kane's actress was in Black Lightning. I thought she looked familiar, where she calls heroes rebel scum and made clear just how silly that phrase sounds outside of Star Wars. You know what, Ryan, to be honest, it sometimes sounds pretty cringy even inside. Sorry, like the very first time, you rebel scum, like the first time it was ever said, very cool. But even now within Star Wars, it can sound a little cringy sometimes. Anyway, Suthius writes, awesome to see Gentora again in this episode. Yeah, that was really good. Like this episode was a good use of the previously on, because it's like, oh yeah, because I might have totally forgotten about her if they didn't do that in the previously on part. A. Marcellus writes, did anyone really trust Kane being rehabilitated for a second? She just has the evil aura about her. Yep. No, I don't think anybody bought into it. I mean, of course I knew, well, maybe this is a misdirect. Like they're making us think she's still evil. But really, she actually is rehabilitated, right? I thought that was possible, but yeah, I think most of us knew, man. I think most of us knew that, no, she was still who she is. All right, A. Marcellus, especially once in the conversation they revealed that Gideon had escaped. Like once that became clear, it's like, well, this is obvious now. All right, A. Marcellus writes, this episode was planting those sequel trilogy seeds. The Leia novel, Bloodline, showed how the New Republic was becoming corrupt just like the old one, and how it was easy for the First Order to rise. Spies. I mean, yeah, I did get a little bit of, for those of you who don't know, Bloodline is a Star Wars novel about how basically it gets out that Princess Leia was actually the daughter of Darth Vader, and it ruins her political career and all that kind of stuff. But it also talks about how the formation and the seeds of the First Order come to be. I don't know if they're going to draw any direct parallels between this and the First Order. Maybe they will. I don't know if they are there or not, but it is possible they do that and maybe introduce a new layer to the mythology that maybe Thrawn has something to do with it. I don't know, but yeah, it did have those kind of vibes, A. Marcellus. All right. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, I don't know about you, but the New Republic seemed just as bad as Empire. Oh, I don't think at all. Re-education camps, giving everyone a number, that was basically entrapped. I disagree. Listen, this episode was filled of very fundamental ways that the New Republic is very, very different from the Empire, right? Just the very fact, number one, that, hey, listen, if you were in the Empire and you want a second chance, you got it. we'll give you housing, we'll give you this. Like, of course, you were a part of the empire. There has to be some type of process to make sure you're not still a giant threat to society. But the very fact that they gave them jobs, they treated them all with respect, they did all that kind of stuff. Just the very fact, like even at the beginning there, when they were letting that dude have his TED talk, right? And then all the people afterwards gather and have these great, like, that's not how it would have been in the Empire, right? The Empire experience would have been very, very different, I think, if it was going the other way. So while there is definitely bureaucracy, for sure, I didn't catch anything in this episode that the New Republic was becoming just as bad. I thought everything that was happening, this was fairly reasonable. At least that's what I thought. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All right. Let's see here. Sam Fisher also writes, I really like the twist that Bo-Katan was redeemed too. I thought there was going to be a fight or something. Yeah, listen, I agree. I didn't even think about, and maybe I should have, I didn't even think about the possibility that she could go back there and they go, well, hey, listen, you're a Mandalorian. You swam in the living waters. You are also redeemed. You're one of us. But can she just be one of them if she's never taken the creed? I mean, isn't that a little bit of an inconsistency? Isn't there more to becoming one of them? Like, isn't there like this whole devotion and swearing to the creed and all that kind of stuff? But whatever. Because I agree with you. I thought she was going to get there and there would be this power struggle and maybe she had to fight the armorer and then she became, I don't know. But I did like the way they did it. I did enjoy that a lot, Sam. All right. Next up. Robert Gonzalez writes, do you feel Bo-Katan seeing how important the creed is to Din might change her outlook on the old ways, especially after the acceptance she received from the others? I think it is true in life, Robert. When you actually get up close and have to really look at something from somebody else's perspective, I think it'll change you a bit. It doesn't mean you'll change your perspective necessarily, but I think it'll change the way you look at life or anything, right? I just think that's the case. Like, she spent her whole life knowing about what the cult did and it was divisive and all that kind of stuff, but she's never lived amongst the cult, which she just refers to as the cult, right? And what has she already seen? She's seen this tight-knit group that is very loyal to each other. They've seen how very accepting they are, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think this is going to cause, even if she's just being calculated and trying to get her own army, I think this will change her perception of things and give her a bigger outlook on what it means to be Mandalorian at all. Because remember, right now in that Star Wars universe, there are different ideas about what it means to be Mandalorian, and her getting a wider perspective, I think, is going to serve her moving forward. But, you know, we'll see how much, Rob. All right. Next up, K Major sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, K Major, for supporting us on that level, man. K Major writes, I'm sorry, but did anyone get feels when Din was redeemed amongst the Mandalorians? Oh yeah, I thought that was great. I knew Bo was the cause. It wasn't by accident that she hadn't removed her helmet since the pool. Seeing that creature readjusted her faith. I don't know that I agree about that. I don't know that I agree about that. First of all, yeah, when I thought the whole quest of him getting redeemed was going to be, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was going to be a season-long quest. I wasn't expecting that quest to be accomplished so quickly, which makes the whole episode one thing about, I absolutely have to have IG-11. I will travel across the galaxy. I will go on subquests to find space. I will go to the Outer Rim again because I cannot get redeemed without IG-11. 2 episodes later, he gets redeemed without IG-11. Well, whatever. That aside, I'm sure we're going to see IG-11 return in this season. So that was emotional. Seeing him stand there amongst his family again and being accepted back, that's great. But remember, I don't think that was part of Bo-Katan's plan. Like, oh, I swam in the living waters. I've seen the mythosaur, which, by the way, I think most Mandalorians believe in the mythosaur. Anyway, I've seen the mythosaur. I'm going to keep on my helmet just in case I can enter this cult too. Because remember, she was completely surprised. I think Din was surprised. She was surprised. But when the armor spoke, hey, you swam in the living waters. You haven't taken off your helmet. You're one of us. Until you leave. You can leave whenever you want, but you're one of us right now. I think she was surprised. So I don't think that was calculated on her part. We might find out in the upcoming episodes that it was part of her thinking. But until they reveal that, I don't think it was. But anyway, that's just me. All right. Thanks for that, K Major. Appreciate that, man. Next up, Jose Garcia writes, doesn't Bo-Katan have claim to the Darksaber now? Din was bested in battle last week by the alien cyborg, and Bo-Katan defeated that alien. Nope. You have to defeat the person who has the Darksaber. You got to defeat the person that has it. And I don't think that creature, whatever it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that creature took possession of the Darksaber. Like if that creature took possession of the Darksaber and started fighting her and she bested him and took the saber from it, then yes, she could lay claim to having the Darksaber again. But like, Din can't just lose a fight to somebody and then, but you know, they didn't take back. It's about possession, right? He is still the possessor of the Darksaber. She's got to beat him. Her honor code demands that she defeat Din one-on-one, which I'm not sure she can't. I mean, she's Bo-Katan of the House Kreese. She very well could kick his ass. I mean, I don't know, but her honor won't let her do that because he helped her, whatever. So there's all that. So I don't think so. I don't think so. We'll see though. But you know, I think that will come into play here now. I think that will come into play later this season though. All right. Thanks for that, Jose. Next up, Daniel Vacara writes, I thought it was easily the best episode of the season. I agree. And the New Republic, Mon Calamari saying that they're not Empire with the Mind Flayer was rough. I mean, I kind of appreciate it. He's like, this is the Mind Flayer. You're going to kill me. I kind of like the way the Mon Cal said that though. He goes, son, this isn't the Empire. I did this myself last week. It was super refreshing. And in the Mon Cal's defense, when they first turn on the machine, the doctor looked like he was having a real good time. He looked super relaxed. He looked zen. He looked chill. He had a smile on his face, like everything was good. And it wasn't until, what, you want to stay here by yourself, unauthorized person? Sure. What could go wrong? I'll just leave you alone in here. And then she took the dial and dialed it up to 11. That's when it became a problem. So prior to that, the Mon Cal was like, yeah, listen, you're in good hands. Nothing wrong here. You're good. This is going to be relaxing. I just did it myself. It was awesome. You're going to have a trip here, my friend. And then the lady cranked it up to 11. So, I mean, yeah, there was that. All right. Thanks for that, Daniel. Next up, Darth the Pooh, I love that name, writes, I'm worried this era of stories is going to be all about the setup for the sequel era, i.e. Palp returning, First Order, Luke, etc. Will only the movies be reserved for the continuation of Star Wars? Well, here's the thing, though. This era of shows is still quite a bit before The Force Awakens. I think it still is a bunch of years before the events of first. I mean, I don't know if they're going to use this because it's not just Mandalorian, right? It's Mandalorian, it's the Book of Boba Fett. Ahsoka is going to be in this era. The defunct, not happening now, Rangers of the New Republic. By the way, I was really looking forward to that show, and it never happened. But all of these shows are taking place in kind of their own cinematic universe in time. I don't know if they're going to use it to build up to the prequel, to the sequel era. Though I don't know that they're going to do that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but who knows? All right. Thanks for that, Darth. Next, we got Sanchez Henderson who writes, more exploration of the New Republic and its failures excite me. Yes, it was odd to detour away from Mando, but it's also good to world build. I agree. See, that's why I was saying earlier, Sanchez, that I didn't necessarily think all the stuff with the Doctor was super great, but it's great that they did it. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think it was awesome, but it's awesome that they did it. It's awesome that they're trying to make this show better, deeper, give it more dimensions, right? Because it's Mandalorian, as fun as it has been, and I have loved The Mandalorian. If you guys watched me the last couple of years, you know I love this show. But it's also very thin, right? It's a thin show. Like it doesn't have any pretense about trying to be anything else. I love the fact that they did something a bit deeper with it. Let's step away from just not, the camera doesn't have to be on Din the whole entire time. Let's step away. Let's world build a little bit. Let's lay the groundwork for some things story-wise that are come later. And let's tell a little story within this episode of a really true moral dilemma. The type that would make the audience ask themselves, what would I do? Would I show my gratitude to the New Republic by saying, listen, you've given me a new life. I just need to follow the rules. I'm going to follow the rules. Or I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude for what the New Republic has done. I really think the New Republic needs my research. So I'm going to break the rules to do what I think is right. I mean, I love that they did it. Again, I don't think it was awesome, but awesome that they did it. All right. Thanks for that, Sanchez. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, there's something really sad to me about Coruscant's only exposed nature being the top of their Everest. Really cool mythos-wise, but also kind of sad. But you know what, Sam? I got to tell you, I loved that. When he looks at Russ, like, oh, what's that? And she goes, that is the peak of the highest mountain on Coruscant. And it's just sitting there. And it really gets, like, we've all known that Coruscant is a city planet, right? But to tangibly see it like that, wow, like that's how high up this has become. Like, it's one thing to hear, this is a city planet, the whole planet is a city. That's one thing. But then for us to viscerally and kind of tangibly in a way, actually see it played out, like this is the peak of the highest mountain. That's how big out this world is built. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was actually really one of the most clever, cool moments of the show. I thought it was great. It made me feel something. You know what I mean? And it's hard to define, but it just kind of made me feel something. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, love the stuff with Din and Bo, but the story with the scientists was a real bore to me. Felt very dragged out. Listen, again, I'm not going to disagree. Was that longer than it needed to be? Yes. Was it a super thrilling thing? No. Was it mildly predictable? Yes. But again, I think it's awesome that they just did it. Because to me, that is opening up not just for future episodes of this season, but even future episodes of the show itself, future seasons of the show, that Mandalorian can be deeper, right? It can do more things than the popcorn bubblegum cereal that it's kind of been up till now. A great popcorn bubblegum cereal up till now, but they can do that. And so it excites me that they did it. And I certainly thought it had moments that were really good in it, but I totally see where you're coming from, Fangblaze. I really, really do. All right. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, I don't think we'll ever see Grogu in a helmet. No, they'll never see Grogu in a helmet. Unless they modify the creed, they're not going to hide his face for the rest of the series. Well, also don't forget, Grogu is also probably 100 years away from being able to truly be a Mandalorian. Like we saw in the opening of episode 1 of season 3, right? There was that kid that we all thought was Din at first, but they had that kid, and the kid was of a certain age, right? Still a kid, but old enough to take a creed, right? Baby Yoda is still a baby. I mean, yes, 50 something years old by our years, but still a baby who's not even forming words yet. So I think we're a long way off from Baby Yoda even being eligible to put on a helmet. But even if he were old enough at this point, there is no way that they're going to cover their moneymaker. All right? Baby Yoda's face is to Lucasfilm what a great adult entertainer's ass is, the moneymaker. You're not going to cover it up. It is their moneymaker. That Baby Yoda face is making them all the money, and there is no chance in hell they're going to cover that thing up. No way. It'll always be Baby Yoda, man. It'll always be Baby Yoda. All right. Next up, we got Daniel Vacara, who writes, Dr. Pershing, which is a scientist's name, by the way, really did get screwed over. He really did. And when the mind flare was turned up, that was awful. Once I saw the biscuits, I was like, it's a trap. Yeah, the biscuits showing up were a bit of a trap. I mean, that was kind of what's made it kind of evident and obvious. It's like, oh, they still have access to that. So somebody's playing him here. But I agree. Listen, despite the fact that it was a dilemma and he made a choice, he was really just trying to do what was right. This is a guy Dr. Pershing is a guy who, since season 1, this character has never been anything but fucked over. Pardon the language. But it's true. This dude, from the first episode he popped into, has just been fucked over every step of the way. It's just a matter of who's doing the fucking at different times, whether it was his initial boss. Why am I freezing the name of the documentary filmmaker who played his boss in the first episode? Oh, he's one of my favorite documentarians too. I'm freezing on his name. Whether it was him screwing him over, whether it was Moff Gideon really effing him over, whether it was now Kane effing him, Werner Herzog, fanjecture. Thank you, Werner. Werner Herzog, one of the greatest men that has ever lived on the planet Earth, Werner Herzog. Anyway, this poor guy has just been fucked over every single season, and the effing continues. I feel bad for him, Daniel. All right, next up, Fangblaze71 writes, I'm getting a little tired of the Empire. I know they're a huge part of Star Wars, but they feel overused to me. You know what? I'm not going to refute you, because I could see why you'd feel that way. Totally do. For me, the Empire is as core to Star Wars as the name Skywalker is. And we need to move on from Skywalker. Yes, so maybe we need to move on from the Empire. That's true too. For me, I never get tired of the Empire. They're always, there's a reason. Listen, when I play my Star Wars role-playing games, and actually, I haven't played my Star Wars role-playing games in a while. It was in the pandemic. That was the last time we played. I gotta get my tabletop Star Wars role-playing game group back together again. Anyway, there's a reason that my whole life, whenever we've played the Star Wars role-playing game, we will always play it in the Empire era. Usually, the era we normally play our Star Wars role-playing games is the time period that happens in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. We usually play in the galaxy that's in that time period. But anyway, that's why, to me, I never get tired of the Empire. They are my favorite antagonists in Star Wars. And maybe there will come a time that we really do need to fully move on from them. But the reality is, in this time period, the remnants of the Empire are still going to be a very, very big problem. And so, I don't mind that they're still there. All right. Thanks for putting that in, man. Okay. Next up, we've got Fangblaze also says, Grogu trying to say this is the way was adorable. Everything that little thing does is adorable, and that's why they will never cover his face, Fangblaze. They'll never do it. All right. Kevra writes, T-Mobile acquiring Mint Mobile thoughts. We're here to talk about Mandalorian. I appreciate you asking. We talked about on the John Campea show today, but we're here to talk about this is the Mandalorian after show. Batmat11 writes, hey, John, do you think Andor had any influences on this episode? 100%. 100%. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. You know, I think it was Magic Johnson, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who once said, "You cannot be great without looking at those who were great before you." I love that line. You can't be great without looking at those who were great before you. It is not a bad thing at all to say that I think they looked at Andor for a little bit of influence and a little bit of say, no, that's what great stuff does. Great artists, great storytellers, great athletes, anybody who's great at anything has looked back at those who have also been great, and you glean what you can. I think that's a good thing for Star Wars overall, for the evolution of Star Wars in the new medium of being on Disney Plus and everything. I see that as a good thing. I personally see that as a good thing. All right. Good observation, Batman. Next up, My Five Head writes, this episode and Andor show what I've missed in Star Wars since 2015. Populated planets. So sick of remote, desolate locations. I think you need to have a good mix of both, right? Because in a big, wide galaxy, most of your planets are going to be desolate, one environment. Like it used to be all the joke, right? Like back in the days of the original trilogy, all planets had one environment. Hoth, all snow planet. Endor, all forest moon. Tatooine, completely desert world. Like that was the joke back in the day. But yeah, I agree with you. This is supposed to also be a hustling, bustling, alive, thriving, society. So I do like that they did that as well, man. I like that a lot. All right, next up, Josh Becker writes, we are already halfway through the season. Are we? It's not just 6 episodes this season, is it? I admit, I don't know. Guys in live chat, it's not a 6 episode season, is it? It can't be. No. Anybody in live chat? Mertanitas says no. Oh, James Argent says 8 episodes. Okay, so no, don't worry, Josh. We are not halfway through. After next week, we will be halfway through. What is it, 8 or 12? 8. Most people are saying 8. Yeah, so there we go. 8 episodes. So don't worry, Josh. We still have to get through another entire episode, and then we will be halfway through. All right. Let's see. Next up, Tanoke Fabella writes, anyone else think the Doctor is a clone? I now feel silly that I hadn't thought about that. Okay. Give me a second here. That could explain several things. Okay, so sorry. First of all, I had not even considered that, but I love the theory because it does a couple of things. The idea that the Doctor actually at some point, because it seems like this is a guy who would break the rules if he thought it was for the greater good, right? That's what this episode established. That this Doctor is a guy who will break the rules if he truly feels in his heart it's for the greater good. What if this Doctor at some point thought the next logical step of his research was to clone himself? That would also, remember I said a little bit earlier that I'm not really clear why they felt they had to get fry this Doctor's brain. Maybe this guy even existing as a clone kind of reveals something about Gideon's plan. Hadn't really thought about it. But I like the theory. You know what? I'd say it's a coin toss. I think it's a 50-50 shot that maybe that's what they do. I just have my mind blown. I love that. Let's explore that more later, shall we, Tanook? I like this idea. All right, anyway. Boonlead Tan writes, Uberbot could have crashed when his head was turned. You know what? I was thinking about that too. But, I have a Tesla, right? It's got 8 cameras around the car, right? 8 cameras around the car. So I often get on the highway, engage autopilot, whatever, because the car can see more than I can. So I was thinking about that. So the droid is turned around looking at the guy, but it is a droid. There are probably cameras all the way around the vehicle. So even though he's looking back at the Doctor, he probably still has sensor data, I'm guessing. I mean, the Doctor was still a little bit disturbed by saying, look at the road. But I honestly think that if we have technology today that can see around the car, I'm sure that in the Star Wars era, that droid probably was able to see around too. At least that was my guess. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty funny. All right. Next up, Fanjecture writes, it's wild how many cars have no roof so high up. It's convertibles. I mean, we have convertibles, right? I have never had the pleasure of owning a convertible. I've always wanted a convertible. I don't know why, but I always have. I've never owned one. So why couldn't Star Wars have convertibles? If you got the fresh air and the night sky, and I bet those ships probably have hit a button and it could probably close a glass dome around it or something. But yes, a lot of people like to fly around Coruscant with the top down. All right, let's see. Next up, Matt Cassidy writes, I think they're trying to show how out of touch with society the rest of the galaxy. Sorry, let me try this again. I think they're trying to show how out of touch with society the rest of the galaxy leading to the rise of the First Order, the reason Leia left. Maybe, except, again, I did not feel in this episode that there was anything inherently wrong with the New Republic on display. Bureaucracy? Yes. that whole thing about the little social circle when the doctor first came out of doing his speech, and yeah, you had your rich and your affluent, but those people usually aren't affected by whether the empire's in government or whether the republic's in government or the new republic's in government, right? So, but I know a lot of people, like a bunch of you guys in this live chat have said like this episode really showed how the New Republic is just as bad as the Empire. But I gotta say, from my perspective, which is only my own, from my perspective, I didn't see it that way. I really saw this. I mean, it's a flawed government, yes. But for me, the things that stood out to me in this episode was how very different the New Republic was from the Empire and how they would handle things and stuff like that. But I don't know, a lot of you guys seem to look at it another way. So maybe I need to re-examine that, Matt. All right, next up. Dan's Productions writes, for me at least, I do not like Star Wars when it gets like Andor. It's boring. That's just the way I feel. Oh, well, hey, listen, everything is subjective. Some people don't like the original Star Wars. Some people don't like The Godfather. Some people don't like Lord of the Rings. Some people don't like, well, name your other movie that a bunch of people like. That's the beauty of the art, man. That's the beauty of the subjectivity of film. And I think Andor is the best thing Star Wars has done maybe since the original trilogy. But that's me. Like, to me, because I remember the first time I watched Andor, I got online and I said, this feels like HBO. It doesn't feel like Disney Plus. It feels like HBO. And I meant that as a supreme compliment because nobody makes television as good as HBO makes television. And watching Andor, it just felt like HBO. Like, it felt like it was rich characters, deep drama, real conflict, like all that kind of stuff. I loved it. Loved it. But just because I loved it doesn't mean you're going to love it, right? There are people who love The Phantom Menace. Okay. And I'm sure many of you who watch this actually really like Phantom Menace, and that's great. It's not for me. I don't get it. Like, prequels are trash, but I love that other people love them. And it's great that we can all look at different parts of Star Wars. Some of it works for us, some of it doesn't, and it's all good. We can still all be fans and still all be fans together. So I love that. So, hey man, listen, if it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. That's okay. It did work for me. I think it's like a supreme level filmmaking in television, but that doesn't mean you need to feel that way. So I'm glad you shared your thoughts, man. All right, next up. The man with the master plan writes, hey, John, was looking forward to this after show as I wasn't sure about where the show is going, but it appears that we will see the revenge of Gideon one way or another. Maybe, just maybe, it's Thrawn. Thrawn could play a part in this. I mean, because Gideon works for somebody, right? They're going to probably tie this all in together. It's probably going to be Thrawn. And I actually think that when you look at all the shows that are sharing this cinematic universe right now, between Book of Boba Fett, the upcoming Ahsoka, Mandalorian, I think at the end of the day, Thrawn is going to end up being the big bad, right? But I think that's later. For this season, I think we all knew going into it, it's going to be about the retaking of Mandalore. And we are seeing that coming together now. And I think Gideon, not Thrawn, I think Gideon will be the main obstacle to the Mandalorians retaking Mandalore. And then, we might get a peek at Thrawn or something like that leading into Ahsoka or whatever. That's all possible. But that's where I think it's going. I think. I mean, we'll find out though, man. Listen, I just know that this episode has made me more excited about the rest of the season. And man, how good has Bo-Katan been? I have really liked Bo-Katan in this. Not only does she save Din like twice, now she comes home with him. She's also redeemed. She's part of this conclave. She's probably going to become a leader at some point. I don't know. The last couple of episodes have been really good for me. So I've been enjoying that. All right. Next up, and our final one today comes to us from Spencer Smothers, who writes, I think the lack of security and easy of getting into the yard was probably meant by design. This was an undercover sting, and Kane is a dirty copy. You probably meant cop, fooling her department. Remember, no. She's not a cop. She is a part of the amnesty program who just turned in the doc, right? I don't know, like, because that there's a legal term for that. It would be called entrapment. It would be called entrapment. But I mean, maybe it was, but they wouldn't need him to actually go in and steal the equipment. All they need to do is get him breaking into the Star Destroyer in the first place, right? That's enough. You got him. And there you go. You got him. You don't need him to actually get all the way into the ship and steal the material and all that kind of stuff. You got him. Actually, you already had him just by leaving his designated area. Remember, he's not supposed to be out there. Just the moment he stepped over that imaginary line, he's broken his quote-unquote parole. But I don't know. You might be right. We might get into it and find out that that is actually the case. All right. That'll do it for this installment of our Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, Open Spoiler After Show. Thank you so much, guys, for being here and being a part of this show here today. Looking very much forward to the next episode of Mandalorian. Hey, guys, don't forget to join us for the John Campea Show tomorrow. Just got word. I mean, James Gunn, it's not, we suspected it would. We just found out James Gunn is going to be directing the new Superman movie. He's going to kick off the new DC universe by directing it himself. He's pulling a Thanos. I'll do it myself. So that's going to be interesting. So me, Ray, Rob, Jonathan, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Make sure you guys come on back and join us for the show tomorrow. And that'll do it for us, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.